We're joined by Locked On Network recruiting expert John Garcia Jr. A big-time player just hit the transfer portal, Tywone Malone from Ole Miss. And we were just talking about him off air. Not only is this guy a 6'4", 300+ pound defensive tackle, he's also a star on the baseball team. I haven't seen too many 300-pound plus baseball players. It's like a Bartolo Colon. Hopefully he looks a little bit better in the uniform than that. What can you tell me about Tywone Malone, who's now in the portal?
Yeah, I mean, when he's not mashing home runs for the Rebels, he was rotating on that SEC defensive line. Yeah, this was an extremely coveted recruit coming out of New Jersey a couple cycles ago, and it was a big surprise that the Rebels won out. A&M, USC, a bunch of schools, coast to coast, Penn State, were all involved for Malone, but he opted for SEC country. So clearly a willingness to move out of the region and travel in his recruitment. So naturally, you would expect him to continue to covet an opportunity in both sports. So a program that has a reputation high enough on both ends, I think, is going to be, more square in the running for him. And obviously, Miami not only has a great reputation in both sports, but look, there's a huge need on the defensive interior. There's really no other way to put it. You've already hit the portal. I think Miami will continue to do so in that pursuit. There's a ton of injuries on the D-line as well. So I do think that there is a need there. And we've seen transfer portal players move on to teams that were never really in it in their recruitment. So I don't think that's a detractor in the Tywone Malone pursuit. And I would imagine a lot of programs are going to inquire here because that frame, that athleticism, obviously hand-eye coordination, body control, all of that is extremely coveted, even just to potentially be in the rotation. So he's one that I would expect to have no shortage of options, but I would also expect Miami to at least make a phone call or two to Oxford, Mississippi here.
So let's go back to the class of 2024. A player who was just visiting last week was here for the spring game at Miami, Justin Scott out of Chicago, Illinois. Now, that area of the country, you can kind of assume who Miami's competing with. He has been, for most of his recruiting process, Justin Scott, 5-star defensive tackle. He's been trending to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and I've heard some things that maybe his family would like him to stay closer to home if possible. Chicago, not far from South Bend, Indiana, but Miami does seem to be gaining some momentum there, John. I certainly wouldn't call Miami a favorite, but I like the way Miami's been trending. What can you tell me about this process with Justin Scott?
Yeah, Justin is another one who has been firm with some schools, but has slowed the process down, which benefits all the non-Notre Dame schools in the pursuit. Because, yeah, there was an early inkling that Notre Dame was the leader here, and there was talk of him committing to Notre Dame. He almost went public with that, and I think he probably would have shut it down if he did so. But he held off. The gut was right there because Georgia, Ohio State, and most recently Miami have really been pushing. The Canes have gotten multiple trips out of him, including basically a whole spring breaks week worth of unofficial visits, day after day, apexing there with the spring game itself last Friday night. And Justin felt that love, that combination of defensive line coaches, throw Jason Taylor into that mix as well. That's something that's going to resonate with most defensive line recruits. But I also think just spending that much time in Miami compared to Chicago. I mean, he talked about jet skiing, swimming in the ocean. I mean, just things that are not typical for those other three schools on the list there, no disrespect. So I just think the overall angle from Miami is going to present a certain way. And look, let's be honest, if you're an early lean or considered an early lean to Notre Dame, academics are going to be a huge part of it. Let's not undersell that element of Miami, especially relative to Georgia and Ohio State. Again, no disrespect meant. Academically, I think the Canes are in a position to compete with Notre Dame more compared to Georgia and Ohio State. Now, it's the opposite from a football and development perspective right now, but we all know Miami is punching above its weight class from a recruiting perspective, and I think this would be that recruit in this class. Last year was probably Francis Mauigoa. I think Okunlola was probably a 2A there. But where you just said, well, Miami's getting in this race, so okay, we'll see. And then slowly but surely they gain that traction. I think Justin Scott could be that guy for Miami in this class of 2024 because it does look like he's going to slow the process down, take officials in the month of June, and then let some chips fall where they may. And by all indication, Miami is in position to grab one of those official visits.